Namaste and welcome to the sixth day of storytelling on the occasion of Navratri. Today I am going to tell you the story of Katyayani. So first of all, a prayer for Katyayani Devi. Chandrahasojjwalakara Shardulavarvahana Katyayani Shubham Dadyat Devi Danavaghatini Om. So who is Devi Katyayani? We know Katyayani by different names. Mahishasura Mardhini, Chamundeshwari. She is called Chamundeshwari because she killed Chanda and Munda, Chamunda. She is called Mahishasura Mardhini because she killed Mahishasura. So we pray to Devi Katyayani on the sixth day of Navratri. Now why is she called Katyayani? So I had to do a little bit of research for this story because I did not know it. And as always, I try to read in different Puranas to come up with the stories to make sure that I have a story that is as true as I can get it. Finally, I looked up in the Katha Sarita Sagara. The Katha Sarita Sagara is this huge book, or it is volumes of books, in which every story is probably there. Katha Sarita Sagara. Okay, it is the ocean of stories. And whenever I have any doubt, that is where I go to. So now let us look at how Katyayani was born. So what happens is Shiva and Parvati were just sitting and talking. And Parvati says, "Tell me stories that no one knows. Tell me all the stories that you know and tell me those stories that you haven't told anybody yet." So Shiva says, "Okay, there are a lot of stories. There are a lot of stories." And he starts telling the stories. Before telling the stories, he tells Nandi, "Hey Nandi, stay at the door and don't let anyone disturb us. I'm going to tell the story." Nandi says, "Okay." And Nandi goes outside and he's staying by the door to make sure that no one comes in and no one hears. So just Shiva and Parvati are there. At that time, what happens is Pushpadanta. Okay, Pushpadanta comes. Who is Pushpadanta? So, Pushpadanta was Shiva's very favorite attendant. When Pushpadanta was just a normal human, he had prayed a lot to Shiva. And he had said, "Oh Shiva Bhagwan, make me someone who is always by your side." So Shiva has said, okay, and Shiva really likes Pushpadanta very much. So Pushpadanta comes. And when he comes to the door, Nandi says, no, Pushpadanta, don't go in." Now this had never happened before. So Pushpadanta says, "Why? Why shouldn't I go?" Nandi says, no, Shiva has told me nobody at all should be allowed to come in. Now Pushpadanta, he was a big devotee of Shiva, right? And because of that, he had got a lot of powers, which he normally never used. Because all he cared about was doing seva to Shiva Bhagwan. What he does is he decides to use one of his powers, and that is to be invisible and to go through doors. So Nandi can't see him. He makes himself invisible and he goes through the door. And when he goes through the door, what does he do? He hears Shiva telling these stories to Parvati. Beautiful, beautiful stories. Stories of how all the devas came to be. Stories of how all rajas were. All sorts of stories. Our Pushpadanta listens to all these stories. And he comes out, all still invisible, and he goes home, and he just can't keep all these stories to himself. He just tells all these stories to his wife. His wife's name is Jaya, and Jaya happens to be the doorkeeper of Parvati Devi. Now Jaya doesn't know where these stories have come from. She just loves these stories. She thinks Shiva has told Pushpadanta these stories. Right? So next day Jaya goes to work to Devi. And there she tells Parvati Devi all these stories. Parvati gets really mad at Shiva. She goes to Shiva and she says, "Hey, you told me that you were going to tell me stories that nobody ever knew. About all the devas, about all the rishis, about all the rajas, about the asuras, and all these stories you were going to tell me that nobody knew. That you've not told anybody. But you lied to me." Shiva says, "No, I didn't lie to you. Why? I have not told these stories to anybody else." "No, you have. Jaya told me. Jaya told me all these stories. So, you have told the stories to Pushpadanta." Then Shiva says, "Ay," because he can see everything. He knows. He knows all. "No. No, Devi. No. I did not tell Pushpadanta. Pushpadanta just walked in and listened." And he tells the powers that Pushpadanta has. Parvati gets upset and she curses Pushpadanta. And she says, "Pushpadanta, you did what was wrong, so go back to being just a mere human." Pushpadanta says, "No, I shouldn't have done that. But..." And Devi feels bad a little at the time and she says, "Oh, I have cursed them. When will this curse end?" Shiva says, "Don't worry, he will be there. It is all for the good. Pushpadanta will become a great man, and that's how all these stories will go to the humans. Don't worry." So now what happens? Pushpadanta goes back to earth and he becomes a rishi. Rishi Katyayan. Now he has his hermitage, very beautiful hermitage, simple, in a nice forest, working there. What happens at that time is Mahishasura. There was this demon, Mahishasura, who has received a boon and he cannot be killed easily. So he is causing havoc everywhere. All the gods are having a lot of trouble. They go to Indra and Indra says, "Come on, let's go to Vishnu." Vishnu and Shiva were having a nice time together. They were talking with one another. Okay? Yeah, two friends talking with one another. Indra and all the gods come in. And they say, Bhagwan, Bhagwan, Bhagwan. So Shiva and Vishnu says, what happened? So Indra tells everything. Indra is really angry. And in his anger, he is telling, this is happening. See, Mahishasura is doing this. He's creating havoc. And he's giving so much problem to all the gods, to all the devas and everyone. To earth, to all the other Rakshasas, to all the animals, to us God, to us devas also. So, while listening to this, Shiva starts getting angry. Vishnu starts getting angry. That anger is boiling inside. That anger is really boiling. Same thing is happening with Indra. That anger which was there, it is still boiling. And all three of them, in one gasp, they go, ah! And out comes a breath. Fiery breath, angry breath. And along with that, all the other devas, their anger and their breath joins this breath. And that breath becomes so big, filled with fiery anger. It goes straight near the Rishi's ashrama. Which Rishi's ashrama? Katyayan's ashrama. And there it takes the shape of a mountain and it just stops there. And Rishi Katyayan looks up and he sees he has a lot of divine power in him. He's done so much meditation. So he sees what is happening and he takes that breath of fiery anger and makes it crystalline. And as he's making it crystalline, it's growing and stops. It's this fiery shape it takes. It takes the shape of a fiery Devi. A fiery Devi who has all the weapons of all the gods. She is shown as a goddess with 18 arms, astride a tiger. She has all the weapons. She is a warrior queen. She's the warrior goddess. She is made thus by the powers of Katyayan Rishi. And so she is called Katyayani. Katyayani. Shakti comes in the form of Katyayani and goes out. And she goes and she has a battle with Mahishasura, which you can hear in another of my stories, right? And that battle in Mahishasura loses, and Mahishasura loses, and then afterwards she kills Chanda and Munda. So now Rishi Katyayan, after many years, is made to remember how he has come to be. And that is also another story. And we shall tell you that sometime. He comes to remember who he is. And he remembers all the stories that he had heard. And he starts writing that down. It is said that he wrote 7 big volumes of the Katha Sarita Sagara. Unfortunately, only one remains. And even that is a real ocean of stories. So this was the story of Devi Katyayani. I hope you enjoyed it. And at the same time, you've learned a little about this huge ocean of stories, Katha Sarita Sagara, that came into being because Devi cursed Pushpadanta, who had overheard the story and comes down to earth and creates her through the tejas of all the gods, and then remembers the stories and writes it down. So it is because of that, because of Devi Katyayani, that we have all these stories in many ways. Jai Mata Di.